Okay. We're live.
Right.
Welcome to True Encounters with Marvin Allen in the Doug Pack. That's DUG. Welcome everybody. We're gonna just give people time enough to get in here to the chat before I introduce my guest tonight. Got a lot of stuff that we're gonna talk about, a lot of stuff that we're gonna discuss, to find out if we can get to the bottom of some of these things. Not a lot, but some of these things, because I tried to ask the hard questions. Try not to ask easy questions or questions that always already been asked and answered. So I'm gonna try to answer the hard questions or the questions that people don't want to ask. But let everybody know that we are live. So post it in the page. But I got a good guest on here tonight, good person that I can call a friend, that has a lot of knowledge. So give people couple of minutes to get in here and let them know that I'm live. I'm gonna go ahead and get on here and I'm gonna post real quick again to let them know that we live. Let me find it first. Where it's saying that I am live. Okay, let me go to my page and it take me straight over here. Okay, I'm here. So all right, so I can post right here. Hello everyone. Yeah, but before we um before we start, because I ain't gonna, we're gonna just chit chat before we start. What do you investigate more? Do you investigate cryptids or paranormal? Where it's like evenly balanced.
Mostly cryptids. The original intention of the group that I'm with was to kind of have like a 50-50 balance, but we just got sucked down that Bigfoot rabbit hole so quickly. We just kind of ran with that direction.
Okay, okay. And if you could, if I was to ask you this, if I ask you, could you name? I'm gonna say the top three cryptids that's out there that we know of to be the most frightening or terrified ones to you. Which three would those be?
Huh. Really, any of them would be probably absolutely terrifying to come across. The skinwalkers. They don't sound too friendly. Probably throw them up there. Based on what I've heard about the dog man, he sounds like someone that sounds like something you probably want to run into. That'd probably be pretty traumatizing. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the last one, I forget the name of it. It's like this quadrupedal reptilian type. It's supposed to be super
Is it something
vicious.
like is it something like the lizard man? You think?
Not like the lizard man. Like it's in Africa. It's got I forget the name, but it kind of looks like a cross between like a Komodo dragon and a crocodile. It's got like long legs. I forget the name of it, but supposedly it's
Oh,
like killed
okay,
people before. Like it's supposedly like it's killed people. I don't know if it's
okay.
real or not, but that doesn't sound like something I'd want to bump into either. So that'd probably be my list right there.
At all, at all. Me neither.
Yeah, hell
Me
no.
neither at all. So the you know the from the area you in right now as of now, what would you say is the most seen cryptid in the area that you in right now?
So I'm in Southern New York.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally like I'm literally like 40, 50 minutes away from 40, 50 minutes away north of Manhattan. I'm in a fairly densely populated area, so we don't really have many hot spots for a variety of cryptids. In my county, Westchester, and the surrounding area, there've been a good amount of there've been a good amount of Bigfoot sightings. I'd say that's far and away, based on what I've seen and researched, that's probably far and away the most frequently cited cryptid, and you know, probably within like an hour, like a range of like an hour or so for me. Um, I remember coming across this map of I guess white crawlers, rakes, whatever you want to call them. Apparently one of them was spotted in the Bronx, so I found that pretty interesting. Haven't really heard many crazy sightings about like Dogman or any of the other mans or that are out there in
Mm-hmm.
this area. But yeah, to kind of circle back, Bigfoot's definitely the most prominent one. I'm about 2.5 hours away from the Pine Barrens. That's Jersey Devil territory apparently.
Right.
Um, Catskills and Adirondacks, they're pretty vast. They're pretty vast places. Even North Jersey too. People think New Jersey is one of the most densely populated states in the country. Um, that's true, but like 90% of the population in New Jersey is in Northeast Jersey and along the shoreline. The rest of New Jersey is like North Jersey is pretty much just trees, mountains, a lot of fun. The rest of it's just pine barrens and farmland.
Right. Okay.
So there's like a lot of open space out there.
Mm-hmm. Because I had an eyewitness in New York. I don't know if it's upstate like New York, but I know she had a horse farm up there, and she used to catch some good, some good pictures of these cryptids on camera. And I mean, she would catch like the whole family, the mother, the female, two youngs, and everything. And I mean, her pictures was really, I mean, they was really good, to be compared to when people say, "Oh, I can't see nothing. That ain't
Yeah,
nothing. That's
yeah.
pareidolia." Everything got to be pareidolia. You know, if
Well,
you can give them the clearest picture in the world, and the first thing they say is CGI.
yeah,
It's like it's nothing good enough for a person.
it is. I
And
mean, I'm sorry.
go ahead,
No,
Mike.
no, no. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, well, I know because I was going to ask you going another question because after you answer that one though, but I wanted to ask you your thoughts on the LBL. What do you really think happened?
So that's the land between the lakes. That's the place in
Land
Kentucky
between the
where,
lakes.
yeah, like that family was supposedly murdered, and there was like the
Yeah,
whole cover up. So I don't know.
right,
So the Doberman phenomena really isn't necessarily my field of expertise, but from what I've heard about it, nothing would really surprise me at this point, especially back then when this supposedly happened, like 1983, rural Kentucky out
right.
there. Something like that would definitely be easy to cover up. So instead of
Absolutely.
yeah, whether or not it was like a dog man or a Bigfoot or a serial killer, like regardless of whatever killed this family, if that's actually what happened, something like that would conceivably be pretty easy for park rangers to cover up back then. So I definitely don't underestimate the capabilities, but whether or not it actually happened, and then if it did happen, if it was some type of unknown biped that committed those killings, that's like a whole different conversation to have.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because somebody came out years later, and claimed that they was that I guess that fifth person out there. And when this killing started and everything, all of a sudden he said that it was two that he seen, and he hid up under the truck and everything, and yet yet let alone one, because I'm sure they got a good sense of smell. if these, creatures didn't smell you up under there. Then you saying it was two of them. It's just, it's like it's an impossible how they could miss
Yeah,
you. It's impossible.
yeah.
And if they are, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say too, and they're like their I'd imagine their hearing would be super sensitive too. Like they could definitely hear you squirming, or probably like your heart rapidly beating. It'd be really hard to probably be really hard to hide from something like that.
Yeah, you absolutely right. And then to say that law enforcement took you somewhere and then brought you back on the scene of the crime, that's a no-no. So they're not going to do nothing like that anyway, to mess up evidence and all that. So it's just not working.
And
I just some things I just ain't gonna fall for.
yeah, and like I'm kind of kicking myself too, because on the first season of my group's podcast from Behind 12 Trees, we actually had Jody Cook on, who was the founder of the North American Dogman Project, and he kind of gave us a bit of like a basic overview just on the Dogman phenomenon and everything like that. Because me and my co-host Charlie, we were fairly new to this whole to the whole Dogman phenomenon and whatnot. So he kind of gave us a bit of like a rundown on everything, showed us some possible photos, but not once, not once did I bring up the whole LBL thing. Mainly because I didn't even know about it at the time, but I kind of wish like knowing about it now, that's definitely something I would have brought up with him, because he was the person. Wasn't he the one who brought that whole situation to light?
Who?
Jody Cook.
Yeah, I think so, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So definitely wish I could have pick his brain a little bit, but bit when we had him on our show. But one thing though, I do have a, good friend who's research you know researcher I'm good friends with, who kind of gave me a bit of a rundown on it. One of the things that stood out to me was how much the narratives and just like details of that story have changed, I guess, like over the years, or not so much of like, from new details emerging, but just like over the years and like as a story like got passed on from person to person, that seemed to have been something that happened with it. Did you notice that? Have you noticed that at all with it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was said that more murders was missing people. It came up right after that. And some said something happened before, I think it was a year or two before the LBL murders. So
Oh, really?
a lot of stuff they're gonna sweep under the rug.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it makes, and it kind of makes. I mean, like, yeah, like a lot of his, he left out like a lot of key details, or modified a lot of the stories included in his books to fit his narrative. But it really makes you think of all the missing 411, all those missing 411 stories,
Mm-hmm.
that Dave Paulides detailed. Like that's something I'm kind of researching right now. Like, do you remember the Casey Hathaway case in North Carolina that happened a couple of years ago?
The Hathaway. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, Casey Hathaway in summer of 2019, he was like a 3-year-old kid who went missing in the woods. He just like disappeared from his grandmother's backyard or something like that, and he was missing for like 2 or 3 days. And during those 2 or 3 days, during the night, there were it got to like near freezing temperatures, heavy rain,
Right.
and
I know what you're talking about now. Go
so
ahead and finish.
yeah, they traversed like really dense, difficult to pass through swamp. They had to travel apparently through. Keep in mind, these are grown men, waist deep water, and they just found this kid. He had a couple of scratches, but he was pretty much fine for the most part. Just sitting on like this mound, jutting out of the water. It was like practically surrounded by water. And when they asked this kid like where he was, how he wound up being in such good shape, His answer was that he hung out with he hung out with a bear for 3 days.
Absolutely. I heard that case. I definitely heard that case.
And that's not the first one
No.
I've come across. There was this one really famous one. This girl in Michigan. She said that a big black thing came out of the woods and started playing with her. There was another kid in Pennsylvania in 1950. He said that when he vanished at like his parents' oil company's picnic or something like that. He said that like a strange creature came out of the woods and started playing with him. Or like no, or like he saw the strange creature in the woods or something like that, and he retreated to the woods and like he went to follow it. And I found a couple of other instances too of kids that you know went missing after a couple of days, found in perfectly good shape, and they're found. Rescuers have to travel through waist deep water, finding them. They're finding them on like little mounds of earth that are jutting out of the water. They're pretty much surrounded on all four sides. Like there's a lot of overlap there, and all these kids are like 2 to 5 years old. You really can't ignore the fact that heavy rains hit the area immediately after they disappeared. It didn't happen in all of them, but enough for it to be considered a recurring characteristic. Um, yeah, it just goes to show, like you really don't know what's out there. You really don't know, uh, you know, what other entity, like what other entities, like like what kind of cover ups could be going on out there. It's really makes me think about that. I know I kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
filibustered for a bit, but
And you absolutely are right, Mike. Like I said, everyone that's out there in the chat, my guest tonight is Mike. And so Mike, I know some people have heard it, but for the ones that just joined, can you give us just a short bio about yourself again for the ones that didn't hear?
yeah, sure. So as I said before, I live in southern New York. I've been actively, I've always been fascinated with just the paranormal, supernatural, cryptozoology, even like interdimensional stuff. Like all that always fascinated me ever since I was a kid. It wasn't until I started watching the actual Finding Bigfoot show. They just kept on pointing out things that kind of stuck with me, that like really made me think, all right, you know what, there might actually be something to this whole phenomena. So like even though we're technically paranormal researchers, my group, the CARC, Catskill Appalachian Research Collective, we primarily focus on Bigfoot. That's kind of like been our niche. I've been involved with them for a little over 2 years now. We've been doing our research. We have our we have our podcast on Wednesday nights on our channel CRC Universal. Podcast is called From Behind 12 Trees. We're got a nice little Facebook group. Um, I've been, like as far as like research overall, I've kind of been intermittently on and off, going on expeditions or doing my own research or whatever for about 6 or 7 years.
Mm.
My involvement in the CARC is definitely been like the longest, most consistent stretch where I've been, as active as I've been. Um, I've gone on different expeditions with different organizations throughout the years. I've gone, I guess, for those who aren't familiar, it's called squatching. I've done that in most of the states around me: New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Vermont. Went out when I lived out in Minnesota. I did some out there. West Virginia was another one, and I'm missing one, but I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get it. Oh yeah, and Rhode Island. And
Okay. Okay.
yeah, that's pretty much me. Yeah, that's pretty much my that's pretty much my bio in this field in a nutshell.
Okay. So um, when was the first time you have ever saw something cryptid, paranormal, really that you couldn't explain, didn't really know what it was, or had an idea?
So the first weird thing that ever happened to me that I remember, I was about 7 years old. I was about 7 years old. This is like back around 97, 97. I was in second grade. Yeah, about 7 years old. Yeah. And it was around Christmas time. So we had this little, mobile ornament that we would put out. It was like a circular platform. It had this rod that was about like 12 or so inches tall, protruding out from it. And then on it had like this little mobile, I guess you could say. And at the end of it were like these little profiles of, little metal profiles of angels, and it would spin around and it would hit this other rod, and kind of make like a bell sound. That's kind of, that's kind of
Hmm.
how it worked. I wish, I wish I could give you a visual for some context, but anyway, there were a couple of mornings when, I don't know when, my 7-year-old my 7 year old self, it looked like it was moving on its own, and everyone saw it, like my mom, my dad, my brother, and my dad told me and my brother that it was a gift from the angels, that it was moving like that on its own. Now looking back, I don't know if maybe there was like a window open, or if it being on you know on top of the radiator had anything to do with it, but uh, you know, being my 7 year old self, that's what I went with. So I think after the first or second time this happened, I um I was so excited about it. I literally told everyone about it in my school. All my friends, my teachers, everything
Hmm.
about what happened. So that night, you're 7 years old. You go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. That's what I wound up doing. That night, I'd gone to bed, and I woke up at around like 11:30, 11:45. So I shared a room with my brother. He was 3 years old at the time. He was at like a light. So I get out of bed. Go into my parents' room. Um, you know, let them know I'd woken up, and I think I was trying to see if I could, like, sleep in their bed the rest of the night or something like that. But they pretty much told me that they were going to bed, and for me to just go back to bed. So I did. Um, so as I was laying down, I was laying down and closed my eyes. About a few moments pass by. I'm starting to get tired and everything like that. I hear footsteps, like someone walking into my room, and then I forget what it's called. There's a term for it, but like when your eyes are closed, but if you're laying down or whatever, but you could still feel someone like standing, like like you could still like sense if someone's standing over you.
Yeah, like watching you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I guess like that, like that looming feeling of being watched over. But anyway, so like I felt that, and like I mean, I sensed that, like I heard and sensed, someone walking up to my bed. It was like an elevated bunk bed, and
Hmm.
walking up to my bed and standing over me. So I thought it was my dad. He was about to kiss me goodnight, but all of a sudden, I remember it was like a childish female voice. It kind of sat. It kind of sounded like. Do you remember that show, The Rugrats?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember Angelica?
Yeah.
I remember it kind of sounded like her, and it just said the word angel in like a very like almost teasing, but like menacingly taunting tone. Like almost like it said, like whatever this was like standing over me and just like blurted that out. So when that happened, I, sprung out of, like I shot up, sprung out of bed, ran to my parents' room, begged them to friggin', let me in, stay with them. But they just convinced me that I was dreaming or whatever, and, to go back to bed. So that's what I wound up doing. But yeah, that was like the first weird, that was probably like the first weird thing closest thing of how, like that happened to me. Just to clarify, I've never seen anything like explicit, or like distinct, whether it's a Bigfoot, ghost, whatever. I've never actually had the privilege, but That's the first thing. And to answer this guy's question, no, the voice did not have a mechanical or metallic quality to it.
Okay. Next question. So, well, you can right now you can just start tell us about your experience of whatever. The channel is yours as of now, and then we'll get into the other topics after you finish talking about those. For
Yeah, sure.
sightings, either yours or some that was passed on to you. So
Yeah,
it's
sure.
yours now. All right.
Oh man. So, like I said, like I've never seen anything before. I haven't had the privilege. Um, the first like weird possible Bigfoot related thing that happened to me, I was in. This was about 6 or 7 years ago, late summer, and I was actually hiking along the Appalachian Trail at a park in upstate New York, probably like an hour and change north of Westchester County, and it was really early. It was really early. It was probably around like 8:30 in the morning or so. And I was walking along the Appalachian Trail. I come up to like a backcountry site. There was like plenty of space for a tent, a fire pit. I mean, a fire ring. So I sit on the stump in front of the fire ring. I get my bag out and getting ready. I get my bag out and I reach in to go grab myself my water bottle. So like I'm mid motion. I'm mid motion reaching into my bag, and to my left, I just hear this distinct, clear as day knocking sound, like distinctly wood hitting wood. And you know how sometimes like a sound, it's like so sharp, so like sharp or loud, like it almost like goes right, like goes through you, kind of like you almost like feel it. You there, Marvin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm here. Go ahead. I hear you.
yeah. So like, have you ever experienced that before?
Um, Repeat it again.
Yeah. So like, have you ever heard a sound like it's like so loud or piercing, it almost feels like it's like you almost like feel it like going right through you.
Yes, yes, I have.
Yeah, like
I have.
that's what happened when I felt this. I mean, like when I heard that sound, I guess, which indicates that it could have been fairly close to me. And I remember after this happened, I kind of just
Mhm.
froze, and I was just like, "Whoa, what was that?" Because
Right.
I spend a lot of time in the woods. I hike, I camp, I hunt, I fish. Um, you know what something rustling through the leaves sounds like. You know what a tree, like a branch breaking or snapping sounds like, or a tree, or like a tree creaking, or something like something thumping or whatever. This was like just distinct wood, like wood knocking on, like wood knocking on wood with some kind of like conscious force behind it.
Hmm.
So there was that. We had like I found possible footprints a couple of times. Once in upstate New York along the Appalachian Trail, another time at this wildlife management area in Rhode Island, in Western Rhode Island, which was pretty cool. Didn't have any casting material, unfortunately. What else? There was those. I played you those howls we caught in Allegheny National Forest a couple of Octobers ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't
you have
physically
sent
there.
me. You sent me them.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, you sent me them. I'm gonna post them on the group, but I never post them on there yet. To get just to
Yeah, for
get
sure.
their what they think it is. But again, though, is it all right if I post it?
Yeah, absolutely. I could
Okay,
probably give you a link to like the actual video that we made for it if you want.
that'll work. He gave
Yeah.
me permission to share these house. for y'all, and y'all can listen to them and let us know what y'all think it
Yeah,
is. So I will be posting those howls on the page.
if they're called, we call them the Sugar Run Howls. It happened first weekend of October 2020. I think it was the first Friday in October.
Hmm.
It was about 3 a.m. We were deep in like the northern part of Allegheny National Forest, in McKean County, Pennsylvania, like right by the New York border. We took one of those fire roads like deep into the forest. We were at least a couple of miles away from the nearest house or paved road, and we separated it into two teams. Me and the dude I was with, we had nothing that night. We just had like a screech owl that we heard at like 2:30 in the morning. These howls were captured, like I said, around 3 a.m. Um, our director Brendan and other other researcher Sean, they were. Have you ever heard of the term call blasting or sound blasting?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. That wound up getting these responses. Pretty much most of the my colleagues or friends that I've shown these to, like that I've had listened to these howls. They also, they were impressed. They've been analyzed by they've been analyzed by the Olympic Project. Dave Dulles of the Olympic Project analyzed them, and
Hmm.
he gave us a really good report. And we've pretty much been able to rule out, like, just like from spectrograph analysis alone on them, we've been able to rule out, coyotes, dogs, anything like that. Like the signature, the
Right.
signature that this thing left. It's like night and day the difference between that and like a coyote one. Um, yeah, that's
Absolutely.
yeah, that's probably like the most compelling piece of evidence we've captured in the field. I've heard a couple of wood knocks. I've got some other possible vocals. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I've heard things, I've heard things, never
Hmm.
really, never really seen anything yet.
Yeah, but that's not to say that they wasn't there.
Oh yeah, for
You
sure.
know. So what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think? Well, do you think that Dugmans are flesh and blood, supernatural, paranormal? What is your thoughts on that question?
Yeah. My answer
What?
for yeah, my
Go ahead.
okay, so yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
Pretty much what I say about Bigfoot. When whenever I get asked this question, I mean, I'm not. Again, I'm not really 100% sold. I'm 100% sold on the Dogman phenomena. I'm still on the fence on whether or not I believe something like that. Something like that is actually out there. But if it is, I think it's probably more of like a flesh and blood. Definitely more of like a flesh and blood type creature. Like whatever these things are, Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Dogman. If these things are out there and they exist, I just think they're master. They're they've completely mastered the art of being elusive. They spend 99% of their time where we spend less than 1% of ours, probably in just places that are excruciatingly difficult or impossible for us to physically access, and they just they don't want to be found. They don't want anything to do with us. I just, sometimes whether it's traveling, maybe like curiosity or searching for food or whatever, they just happen to inadvertently cross paths with us. It's definitely not something they look for though. But yeah, I definitely think that's probably more of a flesh and blood type phenomenon if it's actually like a real thing.
Right, because it had been, so many people think that they are supernatural too, because of some of the things that they are capable of doing, such as the cloaking, and then they might have that old, the glimmer effect when it look like some, like if you look at the ground and it look, you can see the heat coming from it, have that kind of motion in it, you know. So that's what a lot of people think. Some people think that they're both, you know, flesh and blood and supernatural because, or they could say, they could be in their flesh and blood state and then they could be in their supernatural state. So meaning some, okay, meaning sometimes they could be flesh and blood and then sometimes they could be supernatural, which we do know that these creatures do bleed.
Yeah.
We do know that part. We do know that they do bleed.
And again, this is only just my opinion, because I always like to remind people there really are no experts in this field, because there's nothing that's been factually confirmed about these creatures. It's all purely based on speculation. But what I think is people kind of rely on the supernatural, interdimensional aspects of these creatures, kind of as like a fallback when they can't physically, like when they're unable to explain some type of detail or component about their encounter, or just like the being of these creatures. Um, if you think, like, let's look at this situation. Like people think, like people think Bigfoot are allegedly supernatural so many people have because so many people claim to have seen them just like, quote, vanish into thin air, or just like, just they're there one minute and gone the next. What I think is probably happening is, you know, if you were to actually see something like this, first off, it's going to take, like, first off, your brain, your mind is going to kind of like glitch, I guess you could say, because like you're going to have trouble comprehending and believing what exactly it is you're seeing. So it's going to take you a few seconds to just process this. And really, it probably really is, regardless of whether it's something you want to see, or, I don't care who you are, what situation you're in. This is going to be like a real, you know, trauma, like extremely traumatizing situation. And, just like the stress and shock and fear from that traumatic situation, it's going to have like physical effects on your body, and even like your memory of the situation. So, I think like a lot of these witnesses don't realize that, and they just rely on the supernatural, like the supernatural narrative, kind of as a way to like fill in those, kind of as like a filler for those unaccounted details. Does that make any sense?
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely a lot. Somebody want to know what color is the blood?
Of what? I don't know. I'm assuming. I mean, I'm assuming red.
Same,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. There was
yes,
what was it? It was, I think it was on Monster. There's an episode of Monster Quest. Supposedly someone shot one up in like northern Minnesota, and the blood was red. And something happened with like a cabin in up in Ontario. So yeah, like a cabin in Ontario or something like that. Like, those bear traps. It's like a wooden board with like nails sticking out of it. People put them in front of their
mhm,
doors to keep bears away. They found red blood on that, and when they did the DNA
absolutely. I
test,
seen that.
yeah. So that's my guess. Probably red blood
Yeah,
like every other mammal.
absolutely. Okay, this the next question is okay. We're gonna jump off of Doug man right now and jump on to
Yeah.
another cryptic. But we don't talk about this too much. But I do tell encounters on them. What do you think this goat man creature is?
Oh goodness, the Maryland goat man. I don't know, man. I mean, I think you might have to fact check me. Aren't there a couple of like, quote, goat men that have been spotted, like, in addition to the one in Maryland? I think there's a couple of like urban legends that describe a similar creature in different parts of like the U.S. and even the world. But
Right.
uh, if out of all the bipeds, this is going to sound a little ironic, but the supernatural aspect would probably be the least surprising for me if it was like a goat, in terms of like the Goatman phenomena. If any of these
Hmm.
bipedal cryptids or phenomena, if any of them were to have any supernatural origins or qualities, I'd say it'd probably be that one, just because
Right.
the goat head, it's a symbol that's synonymous with the devil and Satanism and everything like that. So there's what are those? Not centaurs. Those half man, half goat creatures that are in like lore and mythology. Um, what's his name? Like what that dude from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was. There's a name for
The
them. It's slipping
Lion,
my
you
mind.
said the Lion, Witch, in the Wardrobe.
Yeah, like that goat person. Like he stood on two
Oh, I know
feet.
you're talking
Had
about
Yeah,
like a satyr, like a satyr, Mr. Thomas.
yeah. Satyr, I think. Yeah. Um, like there's stories like that out there. So that's one thing. Honestly, most likely, realistically speaking, most likely, I think it's probably just a case of mistaken identity, maybe. Marilyn Goatman, whether it's something a little more readily explainable, or maybe it's mistaken identity for like a Bigfoot or something like that. Um, if one one backstory I do like is apparently the area that it was located. I mean, it was first seen. It was right near this like scientific research facility in Maryland, where apparently they did like some weird biological or genetic experiments on animals. So some people think it might have escaped from that. I forget the backstory behind the facility. I meant to do some research on it tonight because I knew we were going to talk about this, but that was one of the things I did. That was one things I didn't wind up getting to, but that's interesting theory behind it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and like the interesting thing too, though, about that part of Maryland, like central southern Maryland, if you look on, like the BFRO's website, for example, their public posts, southern Maryland, the counties in southern Maryland have the most reports out of, the rest of the state. Having said that, though, a lot of these reports of Bigfoot, of like Bigfoot, even like a lot of the, prominent Maryland Goatman reports, a lot of them date back to like the 70s, 80s, a couple in the 90s. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, like you look at the road where the Maryland Goldman was supposedly sighted. Yeah, it might have looked different.
Hmm.
It might have looked different, 40 something odd years ago. But now, like, yeah, it's kind of rural there, but it's a very developed residential road. And just over the years between Baltimore and DC, like those counties in central and southern Maryland, they've become a lot more developed and populated now. They're really like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like there's green patches of forests and swamps, everything like that. There's some, uh, you know, water routes like rivers and things like that that cut through the area. But just with like, how like the DC metro area, just how like rapidly it's expanded over, between now and then. So my theory is if there's anything cryptozoological that was down there, because like there aren't really many recent reports that come out of there, at least according like the major BFRO databases that are out there that have public information. But my theory is that if they're out there and they were in that area in southern Maryland, as that area got more populated, my guess is they migrated up to northern Maryland, which is more mountainous and foresty.
Absolutely. And that's a good possibility because till this day there are still goat man encounters that a lot of college students have been seeing. Now, mind you, a lot of them are scared to come forward, scared to talk about it, which I don't blame them. I don't blame people sometimes because of the ridicule that they'll get and talked about and things of that nature. And because that's where I got my goat man encounters from. From an eyewitness that was willing to come forward, that was willing not to be scared,
Yeah,
and for holding it in all those years. she was just ready, you know, to get it off her chest because she found somebody that believed what she saw that night
Yeah.
on her way home with her friend. So, you
And
know,
in
go
those
ahead.
areas, yeah, too, there are there are like some pretty dense forests and greenways and everything like that. You just don't have like super remote stretches of forest or anything like that where that go on for like miles and miles. But there's definitely a good amount of greenery in in those parts of Maryland, and like outside of DC, like that we were talking about, and
Right.
like where a lot of like where the Maryland Goatman phenomena really first came to light, where
Hmm.
if something wanted to, it could probably stay hidden in there, you
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
wasn't there like a because I know you're in Baltimore, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wasn't there a like flurry of dogman or werewolf sightings that happened in northern Maryland in the 80s?
Yes. Absolutely.
What do you know about those?
Right in Cumberland.
Cumberland. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, in
That.
Cumberland.
Yeah, they got the Sykesville. They got the Sykesville monster.
Yes. Yes, I remember that. When the guy he tried, you know, he said that he's saying what he's saying was some type of Neanderthal type creature.
Yeah.
That's what was said at first. He's saying some type of Neanderthal type creature, you
Uh,
know.
yeah. And I've been wanting
But
to get. I've been wanting to get down to Maryland too, to go squatching there,
yeah,
like the mountains up in northern Maryland. Mountains up in northern Maryland.
yes,
Just like it's a pretty long drive for me. But that's really the only thing that's I guess it's a pretty long drive
yeah.
for,
But
for all of us. That's
you
kind of
got
what's holding us back.
you you got to think. I'm in a city area now. I got another person here, friend of mine, good friend of mine, Sean Nell, that researches too, and they are right here. When I say Bam City, these creatures are yes, Bam City. We
Hmm.
talking residential. We ain't talking about out in the county where it ain't nothing but a house, you know, open space, house.
Yeah.
No, we talking about residential. We talking about near you can go to a gas station and bam, you might see a little patch of woods and then some houses. Oh yeah, they there. They there. They have been seen multiple times.
Wait,
Multiple
now
times.
is this? I lost track. Is this Dogman, Bigfoot, Goatman? Which?
You talking about Bigfoot and you talking about Dog Man.
Okay, okay.
Those are the main two. We talking about residential areas. Yes, those are the main two.
And if you think,
Bigfoot
yeah,
and Dog Man.
and it's kind of why it's kind of I'm not really as doubtful too about exploring forested areas that are in or border like residential areas as I used to be, because if you think about it, those patches of wood, especially ones that border or like are part of private land,
Mhm.
that they probably get like a fraction of the foot traffic going through them that like public parks do, or like state forests do. Like think about it, how at any given time, say someone's got like a house that backs into like a thick patch, like a thick vein of wood, like
Right.
a thick vein of woods or something like that. How often you know do you think people are actually like going out of their houses and going back in there, going back in there, peeping around?
Right. And you absolutely right. And another thing I wanted to ask you because I've been getting a lot of feedback and a lot of a lot of questions and stuff on this. Now, when it comes to these portals, you know, and I'm gonna still do some more research on this, but when
Yeah.
it comes to these portals, and I asked the question, you know, do you think that a person, meaning a human being, can travel through these portals? Meaning, because we don't know where they go.
Yeah.
We don't know where it's going to take you at. But do you think that it's possible for a human to actually go through one of these portals and take them wherever they got to be took at or whatever and come back? Do you think it's possible? Do you think the body could stand it or things like that nature?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not by any means a physicist. I don't know anything about portal, like a portal phenomena or anything like that. But I guess so. I mean, the thing about like the term portal, the term portal itself is actually a pretty ambiguous term. It pretty much just means like an entrance, like an opening or an
Yes,
entrance.
yes, yes,
Yeah, into
absolutely.
something, like a door into a house or a window. That's technically a portal. Could be considered a portal. Um, like a cave entrance could technically be considered a
Yes,
portal. But like portal defined as how we're depicting it. Some kind of like opening or gateway to another dimension or part of the universe, or in and out of time. I wouldn't I wouldn't run past it. I wouldn't run it past them. Could definitely. Um, and the crazy thing too is, and this is old news too. According to NASA, a quote portal, they technically do kind of exist. Um, just to clarify, like the information I got this from, it's from articles from like 2008 and 2012. But apparently, a university at Iowa researcher discovered, he calls it like an X point, or an electron diffusion region. It's basically places high up in the Earth's magnetic field, like tens of thousands of miles up away from the actual crust. It's a part of the Earth's magnetic field that connects with the sun's magnetic field. And what happens is it creates like an uninterrupted path, kind of from the Earth to the sun's atmosphere, which I think it's like separated by like 93 million miles or something like that. Um, so like it's believed that they open and close dozens of times each day. Some estimates say they do it every 8 minutes. Like I said, they're located like tens of thousands of miles from Earth. Where the geomagnetic field meets the sun's solar winds.
hmm
Um, I try to explain like exactly what happens. I try to explain exactly what happens, but it's a lot of very physicsy and things like that. Um, basically. But anyway, so NASA planned this mission called it was just called MMS, Magnetospheric Multi-Scale Mission, and it was supposed to be launched in 2014 and kind of like study this. So these quote portals, they were described as cosmic chutes between the Earth and the Sun. Once open, pretty much just like high supercharged energy particles would travel through. It was kind of like a conduit that formed. Um, I couldn't find anything that explicitly states or estimated how far these particles would travel through them. But apparently, like, supercharged electrons, these type of particles, they could travel like thousands of kilometers per second, sometimes even approach the speed of light. And, apparently, like, echoes of Bigfoot and Dogman, these quote portals that the sky NASA discovered, they're difficult to find because they're invisible, unstable, very elusive. They open and close without warning. They find, they discovered like indicators that could help them, but as far as like I guess pinpointing it or finding a way to like stabilize it, and I think they're like microscopic. That's how big they are. Um,
Wow.
yeah, but yeah, like this is actually like an actual like astrophysical astrophysical discovery. So, if that could, like if that's out there actually happening, then yeah, I really wouldn't put it past, maybe something bigger and more complex. That type of phenomena is going on here on Earth right now that we just, it's just
Okay.
beyond our understanding right now, or we don't have the ability to understand it yet.
Okay, I got you. But another question is because like I said though, because we don't know where these things lead a person to. Where do it go? You know,
Who
have
knows?
anybody ever went and came back?
Yeah, I
These
mean,
are questions that can't be. These are questions that can't really be answered because no one has the answer to those questions.
mhm.
If you do, I would like to see the information and the proof on it
Yeah,
because people have said they have seen these creatures come out these portals. Not saying that they haven't. They probably have the technology and stuff to do that stuff. Their body might be built for it to travel in and out of those openings.
yeah, it's something I'm really, like I said, it's something I'm really not very familiar with or knowledgeable about. Something I don't even, like it's a, as far as pertaining to like cryptids, it's really a theory or narrative I really haven't paid much mind to. As far as the possibility that portals that could lead to like another dimension, point in time, different part of the universe, as far as them existing, and whether or not a person's capable of entering one. Yeah, I don't see why
Right.
not. Like if these quote portals that they discovered in the Earth's atmosphere could like open and close without warning or whatever, and only last for a couple of seconds. Like
Hmm.
who's to say? The odds are probably like 100 trillion to 1, but who's to say? Someone's just like walking down the street and they just happen to walk in front of a place where a big enough portal opens where like they walk through, and who knows where they end up. But boom, that opening closes. They literally just they pretty much just disappeared in the thin air.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, like I said, I have heard of people. They say that they went to a portal or a vortex, whatever they want to call it. They went through and lost sense of time, and they was in a plane, and everything stopped working. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I really don't know the answer to that, Mike. I mean, like I said, I always been interested in things like that. That's why I try to ask the hard questions. Matt, no matter how a person gonna, the feedback gonna be with them
yeah,
and stuff like that. But like I said, I try to answer the hard questions
yeah. It's
point blank
always, yeah.
already.
And it's always really fun to speculate about too, like, and
Right.
I kind of like hard questions like that on topics that I'm not really too familiar with, or like I'll even admit, thought were just outright
Right.
too absurd to even, spend time speculating on. But it definitely forces you to really, you know,
Right.
look at those theories and narratives and
Right.
possible phenomena, with from an objective lens. Because you want to give it you want to give an insightful answer. So yeah, man, I appreciate you asking those hard, rarely asked questions, because sometimes the answers you get could definitely exceed your expectations.
Right. And we're gonna go back to this Doug, man, because like I said, when I first heard about him is when I was a little kid and my mother used to sit down and tell us about these very large dogs used to follow her home from school, every day, like clockwise. It was like they would meet her in the same spot and continue to walk behind her as she went home, because my mother's from the South, basically my whole family. And
Yeah.
she said they would walk behind on all fours. And she said when she used to get to her door and turn around, she said these creatures used to stand up. And she said they was just massive. You talking about the height on these things. She said these things was just tall, you know, I mean tall. And she told us about them, but back then, you're a kid, you don't really know too much about them or really you know, understand the topic that she talking about.
Yeah. And what's considered quote tall to a kid is probably what's considered quote tall to a kid probably wouldn't be considered tall to like an adult. And the other
Right.
thing too you got to keep in mind, I forget where I read this. You might have to fact check me, but apparently, like when you see something scary or something that like frightens you, it could appear bigger than it actually is. That's why a lot of these, unless, and I know this is something we talked about, unless there's like some type of like scale that people could use as like a something that people use for scale. I
Mm-hmm.
I really don't buy into a lot of these reports of people saying that these bipedal cryptids that they're supposedly encountering are like 10, 11, 12, 15 feet tall. I think at most, like, in the case of Bigfoot, the biggest most of them get is probably like 6.5 to 7.5 feet. You might have an eight and a half footer every now and then running around. But yeah, I think just like touching on that point about your mom saying they were 12 when they stood. I do think a lot of accounts of height are kind of inaccurate.
And some people have admitted to that. When you're looking at something, you're just going by, eyesight. Unless a person see them right by a tree and could go out there and get, the point of the height of reference, like a day later,
Yeah, yeah,
I can see if they do that, then you can come up with like a accurate size. But I've heard of encounters where people have went back out and they had from where the tree was at. Now, this happened up in Washington State, and it was
mhm.
I think they was going, if I ain't mistaken, they was up there hunting. What do they got up in Washington State far as big game?
They have everything up there.
Is it elk? They got elk up there.
Yeah, elk.
Yeah, well, anything. I think they was hunting elk, and they was up in this tree stand. So while they was up in the tree stand, the brother told him, he said, I gotta go down and I gotta take a leak. So he said, go ahead, but hurry up. So he goes down. He said, while he was taking a leak, he said all of a sudden he don't see it, but a rock, pop, hits the tree, falls to the ground. Another rock comes. It hits him in the side of the head. Bop. Woke him up. He said, what the? He said, somebody throwing rocks at us. So his brother looked through the scope. I think he had a third. I can't remember the type of rifle he had, but he looked through his scope. And when he looked through his scope, he see this creature standing just on the outside of this tree, like in the opening. He was like, holy, what the? So he told his brother, he said, hurry up and get up here. Hurry up. He said, somebody hit me in my head with a rock. He said, get up here now. Hurry up and got up. He looks out his scope. He sees it. So they both looking at this creature. And they said where this creature walked down at, it was a branch coming across, like outside. You know how they grow outside on the side of a
Yeah,
tree?
yeah, yeah.
All right, it's a branch. And he said when this thing walked, and got to that branch, this thing had to duck down and go up under the branch, get on the other side. Said when it did that, creature took a few more steps and it stopped near another tree. They still watching this creature. Then about a few seconds later, crack, crack, they hear tree breaks coming from their right, about 15 to 20 yards. They both look over there. Bam. It's another one of these creatures just standing there. They said as it's standing there, it reaches up again and grab another branch. Crack, crack, and it breaks it again. So my eyewitness said the first one they see, it starts walking down again. So as it's walking down again, he lets off a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Boom! Just shooting. Thing don't stop. Still walking. He lets off another one. Boom! Hitting the dirt. Because you can see the dirt, pop up off of the ground. This time, this creature stopped. Now, the other one that's on the right, it starts to walk towards their direction. His brother lets off a shot. Boom, same thing. And then this creature stopped. They both standing there. And they say these things was just massive. They said they always went hunting up in this area in Washington State, but they have never seen nothing like this in their life. So both of them got their scopes on these creatures. And they say they just standing there. They just standing there and they just watching them. So my eyewitness said, man, we gotta do something. We gotta get them up here. Cause the size of them things, man, we not even gonna hurt them. So they said after probably about a minute and 30 seconds, something like that, minute 40, said these creatures just turned and they just left. They turned and they just left. But they waited for like an hour and a half before they even got down to even, you know, to leave and go home. So what he was saying is that they never had a problem in hunting in this area before. They would always see some type of game, but it's just this particular day they didn't see none. They didn't hear none. They didn't smell none. Now he said a few days later he went out there to measure where this tree came out from the side of the other tree, this branch. And he said when they measured this, he said the height of that branch that came out the side of that tree was 14 feet.
Wow.
Now I'm saying to myself, this thing it's a giant. He said that this thing had to duck down under that branch that came out the side. And he said they measured it to make sure they wanted to get the height right a few times because they were saying, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. Said they did it a few times though, but they said that thing was 14 feet when they kept measuring it. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy. And that happened in Washington State.
Now,
But I have gotten count. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say when you say you kept using the term creature to describe what they saw. Was it creature as in like
No,
what?
no. I say creature because you know what I'm saying it. What I say creature because just the way some of the things look, or I might just label them all as creatures, meaning Bigfoot, Dugman, Goatman.
Okay.
If you hear my encounters, I always say creature
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, for sure. Meant to.
I always say creature. You
Gotcha,
know,
gotcha. But like
I always say
in
that.
this store's in the story's case, though, are we talking like Bigfoot, Dog Man, something else that these people
Say
saw?
that again, Mike.
Yeah, like in terms of like exactly what they saw, was it like Bigfoot? Are we talking like Bigfoot, a Dog Man, something completely different?
Oh no, so you talking about the encounter?
Yeah, like when
He
like.
said they was Dugman Bigfoot type creatures.
Oh, okay. Dog Man, Bigfoot. Okay, got you.
You know, with the
Right.
snouts.
Okay, so
With the
something. So
snout.
okay, so
With the
something.
snout.
Right. So something snouted, something with the snout that was covered in hair and standing on two legs.
Right.
Okay.
Meaning like Bigfoot bulky.
Well, aren't there like two types of dog man? There's like ones
Yes.
that
You got
have the
with the harmony legs and
yeah,
one with peanut. Yeah.
the one that's got like
They the ones that got the Bigfoot body, but they got the
yeah.
heads. It's basically look like the Doug,
Gotcha.
which they would want to call the werewolf type.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like
You know.
that's most likely what they'd seen
Yeah.
then.
Now I had an eyewitness in Virginia who said she used to see this Doug man all the time that used to scare her to her core, you know,
Hmm.
because she used to walk her little bit of land that she had all the time. And she said while walking this one time that this path she used to go down, still connected to her property. She said she see this Doug man creature, but she said what scared her the most is that the snout on this thing, it had a deep gash, meaning a deep wound on its snout. And
Interesting.
she said you could see partial of the teeth, like the lip and stuff was gone and stuff like that. She said it just looked it hideous.
Huh.
And she said this thing had to get in a fight or something like this, so it had to battle another Doug man for like for supremacy or for the top spot or something like that. But she said just the gash in it, man. It just looked it just didn't even look right, and it just scared her. It scared her. I mean, all the time, And people always ask me, Marvin, why do they tap on the windows and stuff like that? I don't know why I'm thinking they tapping because they trying to get someone's attention. Because I
Yeah.
done had so many eyewitnesses say that they have did that, that. I'm thinking maybe they trying to get someone's attention or to let you know, look over here, I'm here.
Hmm.
I ain't gone nowhere. I'm right here.
Yeah,
So
and like
that's
a
what I'm
lot.
thinking.
Yeah, like a
Go
lot
ahead.
of the stories I've heard about, possible alleged dogman encounters, really give it that type of malicious antagonistic profile, almost like they seem to have joy in just haunting and terrorizing people like that.
Yes,
And it's
absolutely. They do.
yeah, and it's interesting too how that that witness that came forward to you from Virginia, how she mentions that it had that specific quality.
Yes.
I feel like 99% of the descriptions you hear about these creatures, they don't mention things like deformities or injuries and things like that. And you see it in nature all the time. You see wounded
Right.
animals or animals that have like scars or
Right.
disfigurements from
Right. Right.
something they went through in the past. Like if these things are living out there in the wild, who's to say that they're not exempt from that? So just like a little subtle detail like that, when I see like little subtle details like that witnesses mention, things that I really
Yeah.
don't think they'd be mindful enough to consciously include if they're trying to like BS you or whatever. I really think it gives, some of these, it gives credence to some of these accounts. Like, for example, one thing I find particularly interesting with Bigfoot, like alleged Bigfoot encounters, when people say, like, there's a lot of people who say, who claim to have that have seen these things, say that when the Bigfoot turned, it didn't just turn its head; it moved like its entire upper body. Because apparently, like, if you look at like the Patterson Gimlin film, the Patty subject doesn't appear to have a neck. So when you have people, especially that are supposedly like not even familiar with the Bigfoot phenomena, or who supposedly have never even seen the Patterson Gimlin film, talk about their encounters, and they say that when it turned, it just rotated its entire upper body instead of just its head. Again, like specific, like little details like that really, like really make me like stop and wonder.
Right. Now, Mike, I'm gonna tell you about another encounter that I got from my eyewitness, and he had went hunting, and he said if I wasn't there, I wouldn't I wouldn't have believed it. So my eyewitness say he goes out and he goes, deer hunting. So he in his deer stand. He said, you hear nature birds and stuff and all that. He can hear that. But he said after about 20, 30 minutes, it gets dead quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Then he hear this sound coming from in front. Then he hear another sound coming from behind. Now, mind you, he said these sounds was loud. Said that he know that you could probably hear these things from miles away. He said he just hear the one in front, whatever it was, just start running, coming through the wood line and the brush. I mean, just hitting trees and knocking. Then he hear the one from behind doing the same thing. And he said right where his tree stand was, in front of him, it's like a kind of an open space. He said, so one coming in front running, one coming from behind running. He said when the one come in front of him running, it stopped on a dime near that opening. And he can see this thing. Now the one from behind him, it do the same thing. Now the one that we're gonna say the one that come from the north, we're gonna say in the front, the one that come from the north or whatever how you want to do it. We're gonna say that came from the north. The one that came from behind him came from the south. Now the one that came in from the north, he said was this humongous Bigfoot. And the one that came from behind him, that south, was this giant wolf-like creature, Dugman. And he said they just both standing there looking at each other, making their noises that they make. And he said they couldn't have been no more than 20 feet apart. He
And
said
this,
all of a sudden
and this was
that
one Bigfoot
Bigfoot
and
just
one dog man.
it was a Bigfoot and a Dugman.
Okay. What
He
state
said
was
all of
this
a
again?
sudden, huh?
What state was this in?
This oh my God. I done had so many counters I can't remember.
No, let's go. Let's go.
I would have to go back and get I would have to go back and get the state, but it's in the encounter because I told the encounter.
Okay, got you, got you.
But anyway, the Bigfoot just rushed. Then the Doug man they just clashed. All you seen was Bigfoot just hitting it. Boom. I mean, hitting them with them big hands. Dugman clawing it. I mean, they battle, and he said they going at it. And to make it so, he said to make it so a good thing, they wasn't paying him no attention. He don't even know if they even knew he was up there. He said Bigfoot steady hitting it, bop, hitting him in the head. Doug man clawing him. But they say this Doug man, it goes in for the kill. Straight for the neck area. Bite it, shaking. I mean, it was shaking, holding it, shaking, like, and just ripped it just ripped that out. It ripped it out. Ripped all up under his neck out. Now, I asked him, why do you think that this thing occurred? And he said, well, maybe they might have had young, really, really close by. And that's why this confrontation happened. And he said the Doug man lifted up it's like he said it dragged it like a trophy.
Right.
Lifted up and just dragged it around and made them sounds and stuff like that. Let them know, yeah, I just killed it. Who next? But he said that Bigfoot was putting something on him though. And then he said that Doug man marked all around in that territory and went on about his business. Said he never seen nothing like that in his life. Said he was scared to even come out or come forward to tell a person of what he saw. Because they're going to say, oh, you lying, man. You ain't see that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm grateful, man, and I'm blessed to have run into the people who have shared their sightings and encounters with me. And that was a crazy one, though,
Oh
to
yeah.
see these two apex predators go at it.
Yeah. And for something like that, all I'm gonna say is if you if you're a witness to something like that, it's pretty much a lose lose situation. I think for you, um, mainly just because you really ideally you just have to keep something like that to yourself, which I guess most people, most people who this supposedly happens to probably seem to do because yeah, especially a story that fantastical, like let's be real, you try telling that story, no one's gonna believe you. So
Right.
something like that, I would, I would, I would, yeah, I would have to like see. I would actually have to see something like that for myself to actually believe
That's
that.
why. That's why he said you had to be there. You had
Yeah.
to be there and see it to believe it. That's what I think. That's what I titled. That's why I titled it. If I ain't mistaken, you know what I'm saying. But it's crazy because that's just like a lot of people still don't believe that Doug man exists. But you got these creatures being cited all around the world, different states. People never met these other people in their life. What are they
Yeah.
gaining? What are they gaining to say I saw this or I saw that? Well, I mean, what are they gaining though? You're not gaining nothing.
No, and I mean,
You're not gaining absolutely nothing.
true. Not getting nothing in terms of like finding like fame and fortune or anything like that. No, but especially in this day and age where people are so increasingly lonely. And I'm not downplaying every single eyewitness, but in terms of like if we're giving people motive, I wouldn't underestimate I really wouldn't underestimate the lengths some people would go through just
To
for
get attention.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what though? In some cases, that could be the case. Now, don't get me wrong. Every eyewitness I had, I didn't tell all the encounters. You know what I'm saying? Because you can listen, basically listen, and you can hear it in a person's voice or whatever. And it's just the way they come off, their demeanor. You know what I mean? And
Oh
by
yeah, for
doing
sure.
this so many times, and and you can basically say, okay. I say, okay, they're gonna be like, you gonna tell my encounter, and yeah, I'm gonna tell it. You know what I mean? So I basically know how a person can come off, and when they selling me some BS, you know,
Yeah.
because a lot of people on these encounters though they get emotional, especially when they see something that they know shouldn't be out there or shouldn't exist.
But again, though, like there are people out there, whether they're just phenomenal actors or outright sociopaths, who could cry on demand, or who just have like a complete mastery of that ability. So you really can't discount that. And like
Absolutely.
yeah, like I said, while I do look for those like subtle details that people wouldn't or shouldn't be mindful enough to include if they're trying to, if they're trying to BS you like that, that's probably not the route they would take. Um,
Hmm.
it's really hard to, in general, take someone, just, take someone's word for what they saw. Like for example, who's to say, like, if after we finish up this podcast, if I message you tomorrow and I said, oh Marvin, I will, when I was walking the dog down, when I was walking the dog, my dog down the street from me by the woods, by the lake, I saw I saw a two-legged figure covered in hair watching me in the tree line and just ran to the forest when I saw it. How are you gonna disprove that based on that anecdotal account I gave you?
You say how am I disprove it?
Yeah, yeah. If I were
Basically, I mean, basically, I can't disprove it. I'm
yeah,
just going by word of mouth. I'm going by what you said.
yeah.
But then I'm thinking though, we just got finished talking about this. Then all of a sudden he go out and he see one. So that'll come into play.
Facts. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
that's an
that
excellent
will
point.
that will that will definitely come into play. You know,
But here's
you
the thing,
know,
though. I mean, like, yes, there are people out there who are going to try to, bullshit you, or like who, there's definitely people out there who certainly embellish, but I don't think there are as many people out there knowingly or deliberately making up stories. I really think for the most part, a lot of these eyewitness accounts are, just people either jumping to conclusions based on, scarce details because they jump into conclusions based on what they want it to be, what they think they saw, rather than they actually think, in essence, confirmation, succumbing to confirmation bias.
could be
Or,
misidentification too.
yeah. But I do think, like, a lot of these people, they genuinely believe that's what they saw. But yeah, in most of these cases, it's probably just, a case of mistaken identity, or it probably has a more plausible explanation. I personally think, whether these, like whether the Bigfoot, Dogman, like whether these creatures people claim to be seeing are real or not, I'd go as far to say, probably 90 to 95% of eyewitness cases are just fabricated, or just issues of confirmation bias, or just mistaken identity. But that 5-10% though, that's another story.
Right. And then you gotta go you gotta look at it like this because like I said when I had mine and in broad daylight if if we wouldn't have rolled like the way that we did and I seen what I seen then I wouldn't have believed in them.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't have believed in them. Period. If I
I,
didn't see what I seen with them ears popped up, that long snout, and then I'm like, hold up, this can't be what I think it is. You know what I mean? This thing was just huge, man.
now
This thing was huge.
your
Heard you
sighting
coming.
your sighting happened in North Carolina, correct?
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the stories that your mom told you about the giant dogs following her home. Did she grow up in North Carolina as well, or is that in a different part of the South?
No, she grew up down there.
In North Carolina.
Yeah,
Okay. And like what you saw, like it was pretty much like the same area that your mother grew up in,
yeah.
like still lives there. Yeah. So you have
Hmm.
that, considering the fact that whatever you saw was in broad daylight. The
Yeah.
majority of eyewitness encounters, where people actually have seen something, the majority of them that I've come across seem to happen when the person's driving. They see something cross the road or see something alongside the road. And the other bizarre thing too, I did like a deep dive into eyewitness, like eyewitness reports where like the witness actually like saw claim to see something. The majority of them, and I think this was also the case for you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, saw some. They weren't the only one there. There was at least like one other person with them at the time of their sighting, whether they saw it too or not. You had someone else in the car with you, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, my cousin was in there.
Yeah. So just like those subtle details right there, I think give your account, like a really strong degree of credibility. So you know,
Right. And like I said, that's what really made me start getting into it right after that.
and just it makes me think too, like whether we're like when driving, most of the time, especially most of the time when you're driving, your eyes are on the road. Your eyes are on the road or on the speedometer. Anyone else in the car, they're either just like staring out into space, or nowadays, their noses are like buried in our phone, in their phones or whatever. So who knows what we're missing, especially when we're driving through like these, like rural wooded areas and places like that. Same with like people out in the woods, like when you're hiking, especially when you're hiking, whether you realize it or not, you spend 90% of the time when you're on the move, either looking like directly ahead of you or down at your feet to prevent, in case you like, like so you don't like lose your footing or trip on something or something like that. A lot of people don't realize that. So even if you're like something big that, you know, you're like the same color of your surroundings, like, the blue, brown, gray, I mean, brown, gray, black colored fur or whatever, all, and you just like stand still while someone walks by, like, yeah, they're not going to notice you, especially if you're like a distance away.
You're absolutely right about that. You know, you're absolutely right about that. Cause I was just saying, most of the part, I was saying, man, I'm gonna look for some some deers. That's what was on my mind. Just looking for something else down there. But bam, that popped up.
Yeah, and like like look at deer for example too. Like that's the thing with that. That's the thing with deer. Um, they're like that. Like those browns, those shades of brown and beige. They, especially if you're looking quickly or in like like a moving car, truck or something like that. If they're like amidst the trees or in the brush, they blend right in, man.
You're right about that. Cause like I told you, I said my grandkids used to see them every day. I took them out every day.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like a lot of these photos. I know you kind of questioned how the pushback some of them get. People saying, oh, it's pareidolia, or it's just like a blur or a blotch. I think for the most part, a lot of those blurry photos people post and claim like, oh, there's like this creature or that creature hidden, like crouched under the tree or in the bushes, whatever. Yeah, I think the vast majority of them probably are just like pareidolia or people, you know, seeing things that they more so want to be there that are actually aren't there or whatever. I think, like that's probably it for the most part. But at the same time, though, consider this. Our like a cell phone camera, I think it only has like I think like your typical iPhone camera only only records at like I think 80 to 90 megapixels. The human eye can see can see with over like much clearer, like over like equivalent to over like 500 and something odd megapixels or something like that. So we could actually see a lot clearer and crisper images than, photographs or video on our iPhone can catch, just in terms of like depth. You could see subjects and, like the amount of detail and stuff like that. So maybe, I'm just giving some of these instances the benefit of the doubt. Maybe some of these photos, yeah, they just show like blurred blotches or whatever, but who knows what the person who tried taking those photos actually saw, like, how different it might have actually looked. Does that make any sense? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like other thing too, other thing too, you have to think about. People are always asking, well, if these things are real, how come, like everyone's got an iPhone, a smartphone, everyone's got a camera. How come there aren't, photos and videos? Let's talk about that for a second. Say these things are real, okay? Number one, they want nothing to do with us. They don't want to be seen. They definitely take great pains not to be seen. The majority of sightings are, at a distance and only last for a couple of seconds. So let's go back to what we were saying before. If you see one of these things, it's most likely going to take you, like your mind's going to like um, spaz out a little bit. It's going to take you a couple of seconds to process what you're actually seeing here. So you have that. Then your adrenaline's gonna be pumping. You're probably gonna be like, fast ass heart beating, shaking, trembling, probably. Probably like upset stomach. Your fight or flight instincts might kick in. You have all these emotions and thoughts swirling into your head. So let's say that you're even mindful enough in that small window of time that in that small window of time that you might see one of these things. You actually think, oh, let me get my phone out to take a picture. Well, first off, you got to reach for your phone and think about, how long this might actually take, okay? You're probably freaking out, trembling. Sometimes you got to put in your password, load up your camera app, and then once you get the camera app loaded, whether you're trying to take a photo or video, you got to, you want to try to zoom in, and the camera, the camera's got to focus on whatever it is to get a clear shot. By the time you do that, get to that point, whatever you're looking at is probably already gone by then.
You absolutely right about that, but that's the last thing on your mind is to take a picture.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not gonna be the
yeah.
first thing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, especially, when you see something that unfamiliar and that frightening, like, yeah, your survival instincts are going to kick in, your fight or flight, your like subconsciously for something like that. Some people are probably I imagine some people are probably like too afraid to even make any sudden movements for fear of setting it off.
You absolutely right about that. You absolutely right about that, Mike. That's why I said if I didn't, sing what I sing, then I would have doubts.
Yeah,
But after you see something like that, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You can't unsee it.
And like go back to the time of your encounter. Like, what happened? Like it probably took, you were probably in a state of like disbelief for like a second or two. You probably had like that. You probably felt like the adrenaline coursing through you. You probably might have had like that upset stomach or like, butterflies in your stomach type feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like, like whether you're excited, scared, Yeah.
Not mine. You're absolutely right. You're right. You're right about that. You know, but like you said, a lot of times it take you a minute to process it too.
Yeah. And you got this you got this guy here saying I'm saying I'm not right. I'm guessing, I'm guessing it's hearsay. I mean, yeah, like, I haven't had the privilege of seeing one of these things before. Everything I'm saying is in fact speculation. I've clarified that a couple of times. Like, there's nothing factual tied to the stuff. All of it's speculation. There's no experts in this field.
Not when it come to this. Not when it
Yeah.
come to this. Is no experts, but some people don't matter. But some people though, you can't tell them. They know everything and never even been out in the field. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how a lot of these keyboard warrior armchair skeptics are. And it's funny too, because when you say to these people who try calling you out or downplaying it, you try saying to them, if you're so skeptical, why don't you come out in the field with me one night? A lot of them pull, like a lot of them freeze, and a lot of them like get defensive and be like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I don't do the woods, blah blah blah. Then you know what? Then bite your tongue. Put this in perspective.
And I say the same thing.
Yeah,
Why you scared to go out?
yeah.
I mean, what is it?
I get it though. Like, yeah, there are people like just outdoors, the woods. It's not for them. It's not their scene. They could have an opinion on it, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled, to their own opinion, but at most, you're probably just gonna have to agree to disagree with these people, because it's probably not. You ask, like, why don't you want to go out in the field? People could probably have an opinion that goes against yours, but it's probably not an issue that they're passionate enough to go to those lengths to, prove their point on. If that makes any sense. And I get that. Like, I have, like, I have issues and opinions that I'll take a standing on it, but I probably won't, I probably don't feel strong enough about it to, you know, physically, like physically demonstrate or prove my point on that matter. That's how it is with a lot of things.
You're right about that because, like I said, me growing up in the city and really not used to woods and stuff like that and mountain climbing or hiking, that wasn't I wasn't, raised up like that. Did I go camping as a little kid? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Fishing, absolutely. I did all that stuff, but wasn't like really into it.
yeah. I mean,
Wasn't
like,
really into it. Wasn't brought up, I guess that way.
yeah, and same here. Like, I grew up and I still live in Westchester County, New York. Like, it's a busy, bustling suburb right outside of New York City, the biggest city in the world. I always like the outdoors. Hiking, camping, and all that, fishing, hunting. I definitely try to go out of my way to do it as often as I could, but I didn't grow up around it. I didn't have, like, ready access to it. But but yeah, I guess growing up, like, yeah, I guess growing up with it definitely gives you a different perspective on it. But yeah, like, I get what you're saying though, 100%.
But thing is though, Mike, when you do it, I guess it changed your outlook on a lot of things.
Oh, 100, yeah, 100%. Like,
It changed
yeah, like, even if you see, like, if you supposedly see a Bigfoot or a dog man or something like that, if you see one of those things and, like, and truly believe that's what you saw, like, there isn't a doubt in your mind, that's definitely going to scramble your outlook on life and probably your perception of just reality in general. It's probably definitely
Mm-hmm.
going to make you more susceptible to believing that there's a lot more out there than what you're told to believe, or than what our senses tell us is out there. That makes any sense. So that's a great point you made there. I totally agree with that 100%.
Absolutely, and then that's what I was saying far as about people when seeing these creatures or coming in contact with these cryptids and things of that nature. Now I got a daughter-in-law that I used to tell her about what I saw, and my grandkids would tell her the same thing, and she used to be like, y'all pop got y'all believing in the same thing he believe in, those crazy things. Now mind you, this was, I'm gonna say, about a month and a half ago. I get a call, and it's her. So she called me. She said, Pop, I can't doubt you no more. I can't say you crazy. She said she out front about 1, 2 in the morning. She's smoking a cigarette, say because she couldn't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So she said while she was out there standing, now mind you, my son's house is about, I'm gonna say, no more than 35 yards before you hit this path and goes into the tree line, into the woods.
Right.
So she say she's standing out there smoking a cigarette, and all of a sudden she just hears something crack. And she said, now she been living down south all her life, born and raised. And I'm gonna get into some other things that she seen as a little kid. But she hit a crack. She said this wasn't no dead tree. This was a fresh tree that was being, snapped. Crack. She said all of a sudden she heard this running. She said it sounded like a football team just coming through this wood line, just knocking stuff down and over. She said then it stopped. She said when it stopped, she said, oh, then she looks over in that direction. When she look over in that direction, she see those yellow eyes just looking right over that at her, like it knew that she was right there. She said then it turns and it walks back down. Now mind you, on the other side of their house sets another house across the road. Then that wood line start up. So she said this thing walks, turns around and it walks. It goes behind that house on the other side, literally walks through their backyard, and she see this thing. And when it gets right there at the end of the house, because it's a light that's set out there, it's a light. It's a light pole that's set right out there at the front of that house,
Mm-hmm.
a big light, and it shines up in the back. So she looking over there, and she see this thing. It walks out first, and she said, I'm going in the motherfucker. And it just took off. It took off in the upper patch of woods right there. And she heard them sounds again. She said, I know I ain't motherfucking crazy. I know what I just saw. And she told me on the phone, she said, I'll never doubt you again. Now, she said that when she was a little girl, you know, what they used to do, they had a lot of, stray dogs used to come on their property, so they would kill them.
Right, right.
So the brother say, the brother said that he took, dragged the dog back there and he left it. He said when they killed another one, he went to take it back there in the same spot. He said this thing was gutted. He said it wasn't nothing left. Of course you could see the rib cage and stuff like that, but some intestines and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he said other than that, it's like main organs and stuff was gone. He said like
Wow.
literally gone. And it's a place down there, not that far from where they were staying at. It's called the McCain Forest. It's in North Carolina,
Okay.
where they have saw these creatures at, these Dugmen at. And if you go further back, it's like a it's like a it's a body of water, and then it's like an island on the other side. It's like a huge island, and over there is caves,
And
and
this
you
is
can
an
see inside the caves.
this is in like the Appalachia part of North Carolina, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's like how vines grow down like on the side of a like a mountain rock layer thing. You know how like vines can grow down on
Yeah,
rocks,
yeah, yeah.
and it went over top of the cave, but you could still see in it. And he said he used to go back there and shoot his gun into the water, and he heard something over there in that cave. So when he looks over there, he just see what he described was that he seen the eyes, and then he noticed that the eyes was coming like forward, like towards the front of this cave. And then he seen one of these creatures. It was standing up, but it was like it wasn't fully erected. It's like leaning forward a little bit, like it had that hump, and it was just looking right over there at him. So he said he took the assault rifle he had, boom, he shot it over there, and
Oh,
he could see the rocks, dust and stuff hitting off the side of that mountain rock, But he said he didn't try to, hit that thing. He said nobody have ever been on the other side of that little island. Now,
right.
last year, it was either last year or the year before that, the team I was with, we go down there to try to gain access to the property. Now, mind you, we couldn't gain access. They wouldn't let us on the property, period. We just had this truck follow us around. Everywhere we went, it's like they followed us. This truck will follow of us. And then the sheriff had wind up pulling us over and asked us what we was doing back there. And he told the sheriff what we was doing, and he let them know that he was, he used to be You finished, Ray? A law officer for the past, you know, 30 something years. And he told him what we was looking for. And so the sheriff guy, the police guy said that, oh, okay, I got you. He said, but if you had time, I could tell you some stories. So I'm like, man, I was saying to myself, man, I wish he could tell us some stories, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't let us get access to this property. They said we had to go through too much. We had to go holler, go to the down to city hall or something and talk to this person and that. It was just a whole lot of stuff though, you know. But it's been years that people have been saying them things in McCain Falls.
Forest. And this is in the
And
western part of North Carolina.
yeah, North Carolina, yeah. We even went to you ever heard of Kings Mountain? in South
Can't say.
Carolina.
No, I don't think I have.
Well, we even went down to Kings Mountain because my eyewitness down there have ran into these creatures. She said she was going up this old horse trail. Well, she was walking up this horse trail, and about 20 yards up, it's an opening. Like an opening, and then you see those power lines running.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, it was a wide opening, and she seen this large wolf type brown Doug walk out in the road of this horse trail. But she said this thing was just massive on all fours. Then it turned and looked into her direction and just took off. She said about a month later, she seen another one when she was out there. And she said this time when she said it was walking towards her, but she said she heard this noise that sounded like a lion and a gorilla. She said the noise that she heard, that sound, it was just so powerful. And she said that Dugman type creature ran in the direction where it heard the noise at.
Huh.
So we
Almost
went
like it
down
was.
there and investigated, and we got, we seen tree structures, we seen like rock formations where stacked rocks and stuff like that because Bigfoot had been sighted in the same area too. Now I'm gonna tell you what was real funny about it. When we goes down there, it's an area that's off limits to everybody. They will not let you gain access to this certain spot. And we was trying to get over there. And they didn't give us no valid reason why that area is off limits to the public or nothing. They just told us that we couldn't go over there. And we asked them why. Or you just can't go over there. Nobody can go over there. And we just thought that was strange.
Yeah. Well, one thing you pointed out that was interesting. In a lot of cases, like in a lot of cases of alleged Bigfoot sightings or just reports, a lot of especially a lot of like stuff you hear about people who go on expeditions. There seems a lot of encounters or sightings seem to happen along or near power lines, or like utility line routes, gas lines or whatever. On an expedition, I did the CRC in North Jersey. We captured some possible vocalizations while we were stick out on a gas line. But my question is, have you noticed that? Have you noticed like that or something similar, like overlap like that? That like with a lot of like alleged dogman sightings that you get.
As far as like power lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, like a lot of them occurring on or near power lines, or just like
Yeah,
utility lines.
absolutely. With me and my grandkids saw them at power lines run through there.
Oh, those are. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So
Yeah,
you're passing
yeah,
interested.
power lines run there. Power lines run through there. Now, my grandson was out there too, and my grandson, he never even heard about him or seen him or nothing. So I takes him out there one day. So he say, Papa, I see two small ones. He said, I see two small ones. He said, two small dogs. Dogs. He say dogs of the country. So I say, where? Mind you, he can see them. Now I don't see them in natural time, but he see them. But I catch him with my granddaughter and me start taking pictures. So he started hopping like a bunny hop or something. And then he started after he started finished hopping, he dropped down to all fours, his hands and his feet, and he started running like that. I said, boy, get up off that ground. What the hell is you doing? He said,
Yeah.
Pop, I'm doing what they doing. So he mocked everything that these two small Doug man pups was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, to a T. And I kept asking people. They was like, he was just doing what he seen them do. And I was like, how would he know this if he never seen it? So he watching them do this because they used to just show their self to them every time we went out. I tell my granddaughter, I said, start taking pictures. I mean, she taking pictures, and in pictures, you might see the head to the side. She take another picture, and it's coming around. It's coming around. It's coming around till it face forward. I'm like, get the out of here. I said, you got it.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that too because like as is the case as well, two things, two parallels with a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Number one, they seem to be more, they seem to let their guard down and be a lot more, susceptible to interacting with children. We're just like small people in general. They seem to have like a fascination with them, and then about them dropping down on all fours. Well, like one kind of like recurring detail that a lot of people have is called like the spider crawl. People claim to
Right.
have seen Bigfoot's, like down on all fours, almost kind of doing like I think it's called like a gorilla crawl or something like that.
Like a spider.
Yeah, like a spider. Yeah. So that's interesting. Like again, that's like another like subtle detail that you mentioned there that like
Yeah.
especially for like your first encounter, if like a first encounter too,
Right.
again like it
Now,
like it gives me reason to think like like yeah, this stuff really might have some legs to it.
speaking of that, I had an eyewitness in Mississippi that was taking this back road one day when he was getting off of work. Now, he said he riding down this back road, and as he's riding down, he sees something come from his right, up ahead of him, come from his right, down out of the tree line, and it stopped right there by this bush. So he pulls up, but he not right there at the bush. He probably about 15, 20 feet from it. So he see the bush, moving. Then as he's looking, because he got his lights on, he's looking, he see like a nose come out, like a snout. And when he see that, he see this black dog-like creature come out this bush. And just what you was saying, that spider thing, he said, because this thing
Hmm.
had a short snout. He said this thing got down like the spider would crawl, like his back legs was like open, and then his hands was out. And it ran across the road just like that. It ran across the road just like that and that low to the other side. He said it moved fast though. I'm like, get the out of here. He said after it went on the other side, he took off. Man, open that door. He said now, another time, when he was riding down this road, he was riding down this road. He said on the left hand side, he was a little further up. He said he hears something coming out the tree line, out the wood line, coming from his left. Now, mind you, he done came to a stop now because he hear this running. And he said this thing comes up, it comes up out of the wood line and it stops at his passenger door on a dime. Bing! It stops right there. And the head part is over top of his truck. So he looking up like up in the like where the stomach, where your stomach would be, where the abs would be at right there of one of these creatures. He said, so then this thing walks towards the front and it looks right down. Benzo, it looks right down and look right into the front window and look at him. And then walks over on the other side and takes off into that tree line. He said he don't know what it is about that road, but he done had 3 accounts that happened on that road, and that happened in Mississippi. Then he said he seen a Dugman that was the color of a fox, like it was like a reddish color. He said that's what he thought it was until this thing stood up. It came from under a house. Came from up under a house that it was an old house that sat back there in the woods of Mississippi. When it
Right,
came
right.
out on all fours, came out further enough, and then it just stood up.
Huh.
So it's been a lot of sightings that I have gotten out of Mississippi too.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, man. I don't doubt it. It's really sparsely populated. There's a lot of, like especially, like very swampy. A lot of unoccupied land out there. One thing that one thing that a lot of people don't know, I think it's like the continental mainland United States. Like now there are like a lot of like factors, variables to consider, but apparently like 45 to 47% of our land is uninhabited in like the continental United States. Now a good chunk of that's obviously like farmland and stuff like that, but farmland and desert, but that's still a lot of unpopulated acreage. Where like 99.99% of the time people aren't there, and especially those places like like the deep south, like Mississippi, definitely. Like it's definitely like conceivable environment where if something elusive like that exists and it wants to stay hidden but continue to like thrive, it could definitely post up in a place like that. The other thing too about places like Mississippi and whatnot, just like the deep south in general, and like like again, I'm gonna draw a lot of parallels to like my Bigfoot research, but you look at the two main hotspots in the continental United States where Bigfoot sightings occur: the Pacific Northwest and the Deep South. Do you know what both those areas also have in common? They both receive the highest levels of precipitation. They both receive the highest mean levels of annual precipitation each year, meaning like it rains in these two areas more than any other place in the U.S. So I dug a little deeper and I kind of broke it down on like a state by state thing, like state by state. And whether it was a state that had like, sparse rainfall, average rainfall, or was one of the wettest states in the country, even in areas where like, even in those states, all those states, the areas that specifically had the highest levels of rainfall, the wettest areas, like in or around them, are where like all the Bigfoot sightings, alleged Bigfoot sightings, are concentrated around. So, have you noticed any correlations like that with like Dogman or anything like that, or do you think that's maybe just like a Bigfoot thing?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I definitely have though. You know, I definitely have. But the only thing, I mean, I guess the only thing that I be getting at is, you know, I always try to give people, I try to give people benefit of the doubt. When it come to, when it come to these encounters and sightings anyway, because a lot of
Oh yeah.
times these things they torment people and they do something to a person, that can affect them in years to come.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's why that's why a lot of people give me their encounters. They don't want to come out and sham themselves. They rather be like, man, Marvin, we just want you to narrate it for us. So
Yeah.
I don't mind. I don't mind. I definitely do that. I jump on that.
And like I
I
said,
jump on the opportunity.
yeah, and as you should, because like I said a couple of times tonight, I definitely think like the majority of these alleged witnesses, they sincere. I do think a lot of them sincerely believe like that's what they saw, whether or not that was the case. I don't think these people are trying to like lead you on or anything, like I don't think these people are trying to like lead you on or lead us on or anything like that. It's just that's generally like they generally believe this is what they saw, and they're a lot of these people are probably trying to like seek some sort of closure on it, or like find some type of degree of relatability with their alleged experience. And
Right.
you doing what you do, making people feel comfortable enough to approach you with their stories. You're really doing these people like a great service. Like like think about how many people you probably helped gain that closure, or people that have just like found the right people to talk to about this and like get that monkey, or like get that monkey off their back, rid themselves of
Right.
that burden. So it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. So yeah, man, I definitely give you like a lot of credit for just
Eh,
yeah, like I definitely admire the fact that you have people, like you have all these people who feel comfortable enough to reach out to you and share these experiences
Oh
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, you'll take
Absolutely,
them
and
serious.
definitely. That's why I say I always try to add, just ask the tough question. Even if a person say, "Man, what kind of question is that?" It's a question. You either gonna answer it, or you not. And
Yeah,
I put it to them like that because I definitely ain't no expert when it come to this. I just started doing this, but the one thing about it and the difference between me and a whole lot of other people is that I love what I do. You know, I love what I do. I found something that I was good at, and that's telling these encounters. That's telling these encounters, whether it been my own, a family member, or it been someone else's. So
yeah,
I'm blessed and I'm definitely grateful.
yeah,
And I'm thankful and grateful that you came on here tonight and helped me out so I could do this live because like I said I haven't done none in a while. So I'm thankful that you came on here, Mike, and helped me out.
yeah, for sure, man.
'Cause
It's been it's been a great conversation tonight. I think we've been going now for a little over 2 hours now. Like I could talk about this stuff all night
yeah,
with
we,
you.
we
So
yeah, we definitely
yeah,
went over 2 hours. So that's what I used to try to base all my lives on anyway, around the 2 hour mark. So you did that for me, man, and I'm thankful, I'm grateful, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful and that you came on and helped me out
yeah, for sure,
again.
man. Yeah, you're definitely a good, you're definitely a friend at this point too. A friend, a colleague, and I definitely appreciate you having me on your show.
A-
I've listened to a ton of your episodes and videos and everything like that. So it's really exciting to be part of one. And
a-
yeah, man, in the future, I'd love to have you on our podcast one of these days. So
oh
we'll try and
yeah,
figure that out.
absolutely, anytime. And I wanted to ask you before we go, can you send me the I think you said the whole version of the how
Yeah,
thing, so I can upload it on my on the page so they can listen to it. So all you gotta do is just send it to my messenger, or you can send an email, however you want to do it.
yeah.
And
Give
I'll
me your email after this, and I'll send you two things. I'll send you the like actual like video we made of the whole thing, and
okay,
I'll
that'll
send you
work.
the audio, the MP3 file. So I'll send you two
Okay,
things.
okay. So what I'm gonna do is at the we get off and I upload this. I'm gonna go ahead and send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you on Messenger, my email.
All right, perfect. Sounds good. I probably won't be able to
All
get
right.
everything to you until tomorrow, but I definitely will get it over to you. So I'm looking forward to
Okay, I mean, whatever,
yeah,
whatever, I'll be here. I ain't going nowhere.
yeah, for
I
sure.
want to thank everybody that showed up and came out and to listen to my guest tonight, Mike. And I want to say to each and every one of y'all, I'll see y'all on the next True Dugman Encounters. And that's a wrap. All right, Mike, I'm gonna say good night and I'm gonna upload this.
Sounds good, Marvin. Thanks again. Talk soon.
All right, buddy. Night, everybody. Because I guess I'm gonna shut it down because I don't really have nothing else to I guess we covered everything I wanted to cover.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and probably I'm gonna upload some encounters and as always, man, thankful and I'm grateful. And I'm gonna see y'all on the next True Doug Man encounter. You want it, we got it. Let's get it. Good night, everybody.